afternoon, everyone. We want to thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tanya McConney Rivera, and I'm part of the External Affairs team with AT&T based in Houston, and also a board member for Hacemos in Houston. We want to just thank you for being here. We're going to have a conversation in celebration of Black History Month, and as many of you know, Black history also includes the Latino community. And so we're going to be discussing navigating dual identities. And so thank you again for being here. This this presentation is being recorded. So if you would not like to be recorded, then we'll ask you to jump off and that we will share the recording with everyone at a later time. Also, if you have any questions, we ask that you put that in the chat and then I will come on and kind of announce it. But at this time, I'm going to hand it over to our host and moderator for the conversation today, Damaris. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Do you guys hear me? Yes, not all
Yes.
right. Wonderful. Okay. Well, February, guys, is Black History Month. And you know what? We're going to close this month con una brocha de oro, which means a stroke of gold. So happy Black History Month and welcome to Latino Talks, Navigating Dual Identities. Well, my name is Damaris. I am your moderator today, and I'm also Afro-Latina. You know, with a little sancocho in me. Okay? By that, I mean I am mother Puerto Rican, father's Honduran, and my husband is Panameño. And I'm also part of the Crickets Training and Communications Department, and I've had a great privilege, guys. During my tenure here in this department, I've been able to produce, write, and also be part of a telenovela. And this telenovela showcases us Latinos, Hispanics, and our constant need of telecommunications and how we can communicate with each other. So, talking about entertainment, I wanted to share something with you guys, and hopefully it doesn't buffer too bad. Okay, so bear with me. But I wanted to share with you guys what is a beautiful poem that I heard that identifies us wonderful. So I'm going to share this.
Afro-Latina, camina conmigo, salsa swagger anywhere she go, como la negra tiene tumbao azúcar. Dance to the rhythm, beat the drums of my skin. Afro descendant, the rhythms within. The first language I spoke was Spanish. Learn from lullabies whispered in my ear. My parents' tongue was a gift which I quickly forgot after realizing my peers did not understand it. They did not understand me. So I rejected habichuela and mango, much preferring Happy Meals and Big Macs. Straightening my hair in imitation of Barbie, I was embarrassed by my grandmother's colorful skirts and my mother's ebroki ingli, which cracked my pride when she spoke. So I poke fun at her myself, hoping to lessen the humiliation. Proud to call myself American, a citizen of this nation. I hated caramel colored skin. Curse God, I'd been born the color of cinnamon, how quickly we forget where we come from. So remind me that I come from the Tainos of the Rio, the Aztec, the Mayan, los Incas, los Españoles con sus fincas buscando oro, and the Yoruba Africanos que con sus manos built a mundo nunca imaginado. I know I come from stolen gold, from cocoa, from sugarcane, the children of slaves and slave masters, a beautifully tragic mixture, a sancocho of erased history, and my memory can't seem to escape the thought of lost lives and indigenous, a bittersweet bitterness, a feeling innate, the soul of a people past, present, and fate. Our stories cannot be checked into boxes. They are in the forgotten, the undocumented, the passed down spoonfuls of arroz con dulce at abuela's knee. They're the way our hips skip to the beat of cumbia, merengue, y salsa. They're in the bending and blending of backbones. We are deformed and reformed beings. It's in the sway of our song, the landscapes of our skirts, the azúcar beneath our tongue. We are the unforeseen children. We're not a cultural wedlock. Hair too kinky for Spain and too wavy for dreadlocks. So our palms tell the cuentos of many tierras. Read our lifeline, birth of intertwined moonbeams and starshine. We are every ocean cross. North Star navigates our waters. Our bodies have been bridges. We are the sons and daughters. El destino de mi gente. Black, brown, beautiful. Viviremos para siempre. Afro-Latinos hasta la muerte.
Well, thank you guys. Now, this promises to be an engaging conversation. This is not rehearsed at all. We're just fresh to the table. All of us have our own experiences. And actually, it's time to share some of these experiences. What do you think? Let's go ahead and introduce each one of our panelists. Okay, I'll start from my screen here. Who I can see first is Ticio. Ticio is, actually, I'll just say your name and each one of you introduce yourselves. How about that? So Ticio is on my far left. I don't know, I guess you're right. I have Milagros and I also have Stacy. So hi, everyone. Hi. Hello. And they're actually representing the Caribbean. We got 2 Dominicans here and 1 Puerto Rican. So woohoo! Estamos friendo, friendo plátano. Ah! Okay, guys. Well, let's go ahead and start with some of the questions, okay? And right. If I can pull it up, just one screen business ain't no fun, I'll tell you that much. Bear with me, guys. Now, who in the chat, just to break stuff up a little bit, you guys can actually start giving up like what's your favorite foods or favorite music or things like that so that we can actually have an engaging conversation here, okay? Today, again, we have a couple of questions and I can't find my questions. Bear with me. I think I turned them.
Damaris,
Here it
if
goes.
you want,
Here it goes.
I can start. You got them? Okay.
Yes. So the first question that we have here is, how do you believe the Afro-Latino community can build stronger connections and solidarity with other communications or communities of color within the United States?
I can start if
So
we're having.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. So I'll start by introducing myself and well, I'll start by apologizing. I have a cold. I just really didn't want to miss this. So, but if you see me muting or getting off screen, I'm just, trying to clear my throat, but I wouldn't miss this for the world. So I want to say thank you for the organization for having me. I think, so my name is Stacy Polantes Heredia. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, literally lived there until I was 21. So I did school, undergrad and everything back home. In 2008, then I moved to the US Virgin Islands where my mom lives and started learning English. So it sounds like my English is a little bit Latino, but it has a different flair. Well, that's a Black Caribbean English mix in there. And then in 2013, I moved to the mainland in Miami, of course, the easiest transition for a Caribbean moving into the US. And that's when I started working with AT&T. I currently work as a principal project manager within Partner Solutions, supporting the business space. So I'll go to, and if you guys have any questions, I can put it in chat. I'll be glad to respond. But as we talk about the question, right, how do we believe the Afro-Latino community can build stronger connections with other communities? I think one of the main things is to stand strong in your identity, right, of who you are, and then being open to learn about other cultures. So I'll share, before working for AT&T, I worked in the Caribbean in a jewelry store. In St. Thomas, if you've ever been in a cruise and stuff there, those little shops there where they're selling jewelry and diamonds and stuff. So that was there. Maybe I saw something to you. And so there, the salespeople, we were very diverse. So there were like 2 other Latina girls. So we call each other the Latino Connection. And then we had Harsha, she was from India. Then I had some friends that were from Palestinian, a Jewish girl. There was a white American girl and an African American girl, and we formed like a group, right? It wasn't meant to be, but you start working and chatting together, and that's when I learned the importance of being open, because coming from DR, you're kind of like blinded on your DR culture and experience, or in terms of the foods that you eat, the music, understand other people's religions and things like that. And that made spending time with him made me a better person, because now I understand a lot about, I had a lot of taboo about the Islam religion, just to say an example, right? Different things. And although I practice my own things, I'm so more open, right, to understand and learn and hear other people's experiences, their foods, their customs. So again, to bring it back to the point, I think from my perspective, the one thing that we can do to bring communities together is be open to learn. So I'll pass it on to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take the next one if you don't mind. My name is Milagros Montud. And first and foremost, I want to thank Hacemos for everything that they've been doing for years and years as an ERG group. Thank you for allowing us a space. Thank you for allowing us to be seen and to be heard, and opening up to other ERGs groups too. So very appreciative, very humble for this great opportunity. Like I said, my name is Milagros Montud. I work as a general manager here in the Southeast states in sales mobility. I've been with the company for more than 20 years. I started in the call center, worked my way up, then in RSM, and then I was transferred here as a director, first in Florida, then in Tennessee, and now here in Atlanta. So very happy to be here. I was born and raised in New York. My mother's Puerto Rican, my father's Afro-American, very strong ties. I always say the following: when we lived in New York, we spoke Spanish in the house and spoke English outside. When I moved to Puerto Rico when I was about 14 years old. And then we spoke English in the household and Spanish with the rest of the world. So that gave me that dualship, which is very fitting for this title, of knowing, and not only knowing, but understanding. So very happy for that. So to answer the question, how can we create these stronger ties? I'm kind of a historian. You have to know where things come from to be able to continue to build. And when you look at Latin America, right, it's one of the largest, aside from Africa, where people of descendants of more than 10 million Africans were imprisoned and transported into freights to America, right, during those transatlantic fields. So we are very much ingrained and in part the same, right? We are Black, period. We're part of that African diaspora. Maybe the only difference, if you talk about a difference, is that we speak Spanish, right? But the African continent influenced the world, and we need to embrace that. So when you look at that and know that contribution, I think it all starts off first and foremost where we come from. The second thing immediately after is accept that, right? Accept that those different, that we're not monolith, right? Those different variations of who we are. It's just not one thing, right? We live in a society that constantly wants to push us into a box. You belong here, you don't belong here, you belong here. One of the greatest things in passion and poesy of being Afro-Latina is that you don't, or Latino, you don't fit into any of that. You navigate between all of that, and it just makes us more rich. So once again, answering the question, how can we build? Know first and foremost the history, the contribution, and then acceptance. Acceptance, Stacey spoke about that, how to expect other cultures to accept yourself and really understand that we're continuously evolving. I think that's what sets forward to be able to build strong connections.
Do you want to
Excellent.
join in that, Ticio?
Yes, excellent. My name
Thank
is
you, Milagros.
Ticio Vargas, born to Dominican parents. I grew up in New York. Both my parents and most of my family actually live over there, so I do go there a couple times a year. I played a lot of sports, so you're gonna notice a theme when I respond. It's always mostly tied to sports. Because I've been doing it for so long, 8, 9 years old, and I don't know how to stop. So that's helped me along the way with, multitasking, focusing, and also being able to play and experience different cultures. And also growing up in New York, you definitely experience that a lot. So going back to the question is, I am definitely more of a ground level people person. I like to interact with people. So the way I handle or encounter is that, I just have open discussions. through sports. I coached my kids' sports, baseball, my son, baseball, basketball, and football. And my daughter plays soccer. She's actually at Brown University, and she plays for the Dominican Republic national women's team. She's just coming from California. Yeah. So it's really, so when I go to those sporting events, I just, I do gravitate to people that look like me. Um, no one ever thinks I'm Spanish. So even when I encounter someone that's Dominican, I'll let them speak a little Spanish so I can shock them. Yeah, and then I speak Spanish and they're like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me you speak Spanish? I'm like, you didn't ask. So basically it's having those discussions and sharing my experiences and sharing my successful experiences, right? I started from the ground level. My parents retired when I was in high school. So I finished sophomore year to senior year in the Dominican Republic, and then was in American school. And I also did a year and a half of college over there. So I have a unique experience, and I share that experience with people, how I moved back, then, how I came with zero and how I build myself. And it's basically just putting my head down like I did in sports and just working and working and working. And I believe that when you work and you give an example, eventually you'll be recognized in sports and in life and everywhere. So it's just sharing that experience with different folks, and hopefully my experience translates to them and hopefully inspires them to say, oh, look at he started from from the ground, and I was able to get an accounting degree and a master's in information management. And I was playing football in college, and I stopped playing. I made the decision. I looked at it my first year and I said, you know what, I'm going to have to focus on one. I can't do both to the level I want to. So even though I love sports, I just stopped playing football and I focused on my career, on my degree.
I love it. I love it. And the thing what each of you have in common is basically present yourself at the table, make people aware that there is such a thing, right? Also educate those around you, and be present. Be an example. So this is all wonderful. And each one of you are masters at that. Now, what unique challenges do you face as an Afro-Latino? Why are we here? Because, okay, so you're Black, you're Hispanic, what's the big deal? So why are we here? What's so unique? Anybody?
I'll take that
Okay.
one. Damaris, I'll take that one.
Okay.
Challenges, I think everybody on this call, regardless of it, has faced challenges of one way or the other, and some are not even race related, right? But or some stem from that. But it could be challenges constantly. I think once again, you go back to that history and think about it, right? There's not a class in elementary school or even in high school there's a topic in regards to Afro-Latina history. There's not. So one of the things that the challenges that you face is then, so who are you and where it stems from, right? That portion is there. So it really starts at early ages where it's not taught, we don't know about un Arturo Alfonso Schoenberg that was Puerto Rican and from German descent, historian, writer. It's just not set there until you go to college and you take these electives and you start taking these courses. So that kind of starts stemming a challenge. And then obviously growing up as it is, being a teenager and things of that nature, you don't want to stand out. You want to fit in, right? So you either fit in of how you establish yourself, or you fit in of what others are seeing and saying that you are for a time being. So that becomes a challenge too. So understanding that, and at the very beginning, and understanding that it is a challenge, but then you bring yourself to the table, you bring your authentic self to, Thesia said something really, really that I can connect to. People will not know that I know Spanish until I throw something out there, right? A menos que no me vean los zapatos. Si tú me miras mis zapatos y my hoops, Latina. But if this is covered and you're in an environment and you're speaking out and things of that nature, no one will understand. No one will know that until you throw out a word there, right? And then they'll say that you can speak Spanish, that there. So that within itself is a challenge that I think that every day you make a decision, at least myself, make a decision to present yourself authentically, present yourself where you can relate to everyone. And if asked, how do I identify? Then definitely then bring your authentic self to say, I identify as a Black Latina.
Stacey, you want to join in on that one too?
Yes. So I think I have a bit of a different experience because I was born in and I grew up in DR, right? So up to 21, that's all I know. And then in DR we have our problems when it comes to colorism and racism, like everywhere, right? So I don't want to say we're immune to that. That would be a lie, and I'm not gonna go here and lie to you. But I would say though that when it comes to our customs and our culture, we are one, right? When you get to DR, regardless of what you look like, we eat sancocho, we dance bachata, we dance merengue, like we go to all the same activities, all the different things. There's no limitations when it comes to that part of our culture. And then moving to the US, it's like I needed a box. I needed to explain what am I, where am I from, why don't look like why don't I have the Latino look? So, it's something that I still navigate today. It doesn't impact me the same, right? You learn, and as Milagros nicely said, you wake up every day and decide, right? You know who you are and you're going to represent yourself. And but even going to the supermarket, right? I, as a Dominican, love plantains and produce. So sometimes in the Whole Foods or whatever around the house, they don't have what I need. Oh, you already know, if you're in Dallas, I'm heading to El Rancho. So they have all my produce there. But as I speak to the cashiers and the people in Spanish, even when they don't speak English, they're still trying to speak English to me because their brain cannot register that I'm Latino. And then when they realize that my Spanish is so good, it still doesn't register. They compliment me and say, "Oh my God, where did you learn Spanish? Your Spanish is so good." Right? It takes so much for them to understand, no, I'm one of you, right? I'm Latino. So that continues to be a challenge. And all we can do, as we said earlier, is continue to educate people, but this is continue to happen. I think a lot more Afro-Latinos are raising their hand and trying to be out there and talk about themselves and their history. And that's going to help people continue to be aware that we are here, that we exist, and that Latino doesn't have a specific look. And that's the hope.
I love that.
Yeah.
Being mixed myself, that I face that a lot also because, of course, I have a Puerto Rican mom. My mom is very light skinned and my dad is very dark. So I would pass my cousins in the street and I'd be like, "Hey, it's me." And I was just one of the more, morenas in the street. They wouldn't realize, wait a minute, me and you are cousins. So Thesia, have you faced something similar like that?
So I guess going back to where I grew up in New York, there were a lot of diverse cultures, Italian, African American, me, Dominican. So, I understand and I recognize the color of my skin, but I never paid attention to it. Right? I just bring my personality and who I am, and and it's just who I am, and I just start becoming. People start gravitating towards me because I'm, Dominicans bring a different type of flavor. We're fun. Everything, we want to dance to everything. We want to, bring activity to everything. So, you look at where I work. I'm an accountant. And there's not too many people that look at me in accounting, right? So the first thing when I come to the group is, you know, I just had discussions about who I am, but then I also, do other stuff outside of work. So I start to create different events, going to baseball games, stuff that my group doesn't do, going to water park, family day. And, they start to appreciate that I bring that different perspective to the team. And then, people just start recognizing, oh, you're Dominican. Yeah. And, when I work, I listen to music. A lot of people think I'm in meetings. I'm in meetings sometimes, but I'm listening to music. So it's just, presenting myself as who I am and not being afraid to be who I am, I think takes away some of the challenges.
I love it. And, I would just ask a question. It's not again, it's nothing that we rehearse, but I want to know from you guys, how do you report yourself to AT&T? Black, Hispanic, white? How do you report yourself? Because we
My
do have that where we
my
have to
race
check the
is
box.
black and my ethnicity is Latino.
So that's
Okay.
exactly what I do.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
exactly what I do. Yeah.
So
And- yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, I was gonna say that, Maris, remember, at least for myself growing up in the 80s, there were like 4 categories, right?
Mhm.
You were either white, you were black, right? Or you were what we would understand back then, any of Asian descent, well, then you were Chinese. And if you were south of the border of the US, you were Mexican. That's what that was
Right.
there, right? So you spoke about that, Stacey, a little bit about colorism and how people present themselves, right? So then it was just fairly on the color of your skin. But if, to your point, if you look at my mother, that's Puerto Rican, del barrio El Bajo de Arroyo. That's what she's, but she presents herself more white,
Yeah.
right? So you would think that there. My dad's not only Afro-American, but that comes from Barbados and Trinidad. So that Caribbean is all there, right? So
Yeah.
you at the very beginning was kind of obligated to kind of pick one of those boxes, right? Pick that there. But to Stacey's point, and these are spoke, but then you spoke Spanish. So what does that mean? And even growing up for myself in El Barrio in New York, sometimes you would hear people tell us, hey, you stay with the Puerto Ricans porque ahí están los morenos. So you thought los morenos, is that something different than this?
That's not me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that made it even more complicated, so to your point, right? So then, yeah, you'd have to check off the box, but you do this, but you maybe have Latinos that check off that same box and put white, Hispanic.
Now, because of that colorism and the fact that we aren't really African American, we don't share a lot of that history, right? So we don't have, quote unquote, the slavery trade, which we actually do. We do. And
Yes.
so how do we bypass, or what's this impact of this colorism that we have here as an Afro-Latino community?
I do want to take it again, but I do want to say the following. We do share the history. We don't share the experience.
Yeah.
Right.
We share the history. We don't share the experiences, right? Like 2 months ago, I have a part of my market overseas Memphis, and I've been to Memphis for the last 2 years every month, but I had never gone to the museum of Martin Luther King where he was shot, right? That gave me an experience. I have that history, but that gave me a perception of an experience that I had never had. You don't have that happening in New York. Just because you're in the northern port of the place. So I think we do share the same history. We were enslaved. We were part of that trade. Remember that we were part of that trade. We were part of that diaspora.
We are.
We're one of the largest. Latin America is one of the largest separate from Africa, but we don't share those experiences.
And if I can add, the importance of understanding the things that we as Latinos share and we don't, for someone like me that was not born in the US, I think understanding the difference allows you to have also some level of respect for the African American community, right? Because there are things that I just didn't experience. I went to the same school from the time I was 2 years old until 17 that I finished high school. I wasn't discriminated. No teachers was mean to me because of the color of my skin. They did call me negrita, la morenita, all these little things. Some things some kids have meant it in a mean ways. Some it was a term of endearment, but the experience, what they went through, that was created a lot as a result of segregation, right? We didn't have that in my country. If you go to DR, you will find there are parts of the country where you have a lot more people of color than others. That's just because I'm from La Romana, and a lot of the sugarcane plantations happen there. They'll bring the Haitians to work there. As a result, you get mixed, and that's why you'll see a lot more people of color than that you would see in Santiago, right? But no one prohibited them from traveling to Santiago and living there, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
so I think understanding, I loved how you said it, right? We share the history, not the experience. Understanding the differences can also help us have some respect for them as we're having the conversations and see. Sometimes we think different, sometimes we act different, but it's because we were raised in a different culture in a way that allow us to have a different perspective. So we don't have sometimes the same exact trauma that they have. We have our own, right? But it's not exactly the same, and that's going to impact how we behave versus how they behave.
Now, Thecio, you was raised in New York, right?
Yes.
So you went to schools in New York. Is that your experience or is it a little different?
Oh, so my experience, I probably was clueless. So I grew up with a very diverse group, and we used to call each other names, which probably you cannot say today. But we bet that, it was just how you grow up in New York, calling each
Right,
other.
yeah.
So that's why I say I was clueless, because I never paid mind to it. And I was the type that if my Italian friends were with all his Italian friends, and guess what? I would jump right in, not even think about it. And I would just grow on people. So I think it's part I was clueless, and part I just, I didn't really think about it. It wasn't going to stop me from, talking to people. And, I recognize sometimes people look at me weird, but I just write it off. And you know what? I'm gonna make them like me or fall in love with me. But like, this guy's fun, and he says what he says. He backs it up, and then let's go play sports. I grew up, like I said, playing sports: stickball, handball, basketball, football on the street, and it wasn't everybody. So I think once you put sports into it, a lot of that, feeling of being different races starts to go out the door, and people start to gather and get together because you're playing for a common goal.
Mhm.
So
Now,
yeah.
let me ask you guys, because at least for me, and I'm totally off topic here because I have a list of questions, but you guys are taking me everywhere. And if you know me, that's what I do. Okay. Well, anyway, well, my experience was a little different. I found that I didn't belong anywhere, right? Um, my family, my grandmother used to pull my hair and says, tu pelo es malo, ese pelo malo. And I always had my hair like this because my mom didn't know how to comb it, It was like, okay, there's products out there that you can put on the hair or whatever. So I had to make myself pretty by alisarme el pelo. And I had, long flowy hair because that was what was beautiful, right? Yet I had my grandmother on my father's side. Oh no, you're not like the black folks. And she's black, right? You're not like the black folks because you're mestiza. And mestiza, guys, for many of you that don't know, it's a word that's actually really for the people that are mixed in the in Latin America, Central America, or South America, and that was their way of integrating people. So instead of having a separation between Blacks and the Spaniards, let's combine them all and create a brand new race. And that's really, in a sense, what we are, mestizos, right? So there is a question in here that says, how do you believe we can increase the visibility and representation in mainstream American society? So I bring that up because you're not really seen as Black by Black folks, not really seen by Hispanic as Hispanic folks or Latinos. So how do we increase our visibility? Anyone?
I would say, I don't know, I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer to
Okay.
that, but I would say it's a big challenge because to increase the visibility mainstream in America society, it will require a level of unity that I don't think we're there yet. I wish I remember her name, but there's this girl. She's in social media presence. She does makeup and stuff. I think her name is Julissa, because I think I have it in my head that she says, Julissa, your morenita favorita, something like that. So she's Afro-Latino, and she does makeup. She's become very popular. They invite her to awards and a lot of things like that. And one day she posted a video, and she normally doesn't know that, but she was kind of like providing some explanation about a lot of people that went to her comments and were saying demeaning things about how she pretends to be Afro-Dominican and she's not, about she's too dark for being Afro-Dominican, that she must be Haitian, and a bunch of different things. I think for us to go out there and present ourselves in the overall American society as strong as we want to, we have to continue to work into getting on the same page. And that thing would be acceptance, right? Acceptance of who we are. And I think Milagro touched on that earlier, that, you know, when we talked about what boxes do we check, some people, although they may have some African descendancy, they deny it, and then they will just check Hispanic, and they go about their life, and that's who they are. And if they look the part, right, that they have the Hispanic look, it's an easy way to do. But if we all really embrace our history, where we come from and who we are, we realize that a lot more of us are actually Afro-Latinos. And then once you realize who we are, you're more inclined to support those that you feel belong to your group, right, and belong to who you are. So from my perspective, I don't have the answer, but I think we can start with embracing each other a lot more than we did today.
And I want to point out, Afro-Latino does not mean Spanish. That does not mean that you have to know Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It means it has nothing to do with the Spanish language. It has to do with where your ancestors were from, in a sense, right? So I love the questions that are also in here in the chat bot.
Yes,
And
Armani, if I
actually,
was gonna add, I didn't know
yeah,
if you
if I
wanted
was
me to put
gonna,
it out there that, we had
exactly.
a question, whether or not any of you have faced discrimination, racism in the Latino community. And also, what's the difference between an Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina, bad hair, body type, or just things that you guys have kind of heard, and not being accepted by both sides, how you're saying. How did you guys overcome or deal with moving forward as you grew up dealing with this?
That's a really good question. And I think my experience a little bit different than Stacy, right? Stacy said that she was born and raised for the most part in the Dominican Republic. This year myself, we were born in New York, right? So I went to live the reverse. I went to live to Puerto Rico when I was about 14 years old. My dad had finished his degree in Fordham University, his master's degree, and he was a correctional officer there in Rikers Island. And when he retired from there, he went to teach at the University of Puerto Rico. So that's what brings us there, right? Now, my mom, that's Puerto Rican. My mom wanted to stay in New York, but my dad, we went to Puerto Rico. So I'm in Puerto Rico, and there, I think the discrimination was a little bit because you were New Yorican. That's like another box. Right? So you like New Yorican. So it was a difference. When I say discrimination, I don't think I wasn't considered or stuff like that, but it was just like another box for me. But to Stacey's point, once you're ingrained, it's all about everybody there is Puerto Rican for the most part. And if they're not, they're Latino and living in Puerto Rico, period. Maybe there is that aspect of colorism, right? Necesitas un blanquito para echar pa'lante. That means you need someone lighter so you can keep growing, right? Tú sabes, el que tiene padrino, madrina, se bautiza, right? If you have like a godmother or a godfather, you can get baptized, you can get ahead, right? And that did permeate there, but that's what it was. When I fell in as part of my promotion in Florida, that's where I really needed to kind of identify and think of myself in a different term. Not because I lived in Florida, I'm just saying coming into the States, it could have happened in any other state, right? I'm not just speaking to that, but that's where I had to kind of do the click, because there, for all due purposes, I was Black, period, right? My kids, I raised them in Puerto Rico, and then they came to live with the States. I had to have the conversation that we all speak about, the conversation. I had to have that conversation when they came into the States, especially my oldest daughter, when she went to do her master's in Idaho. When she brought my beloved at the time, right? I'm being very transparent. At the time, my beloved, today my son-in-law, but when she brought him to that first dinner, yo era, ¿qué pasó aquí? I had never seen a poster when she was a teenager that looked like my beloved. He's my son. My son, right? He's white, blue eyes. You're like, ¿Qué pasó esto? When did this happen? And she was going to Idaho, and I had to have that conversation with her. Hey, you're not exotic. You're not J-Lo. You're Black. I want you to understand this because you're crossing into another area on the West Coast, and you got to get this all together, right? So I think those were, once again, I always bring it back to experiences, right? The experiences, depending where you are, what time, what era, and where you are. So that portion of transculturation, because that's what that is, and that intersectionality that you have to think of, like, women, you're a woman, but you're a woman of Black, but you're also a woman that's Black and that's Latino, that speak Spanish. All those intersectionalities became very relevant once I came to really live back into the States. At least that was my experience.
So it sounds to me almost like you're also saying, so there's triple identities instead of double identities, right?
Mhm.
So not only are we looking at being Black, Hispanic, but also being American,
That's
you know?
that's
So we have to also kind of adapt to, well, I'm American, right? But prove it. You're American,
Right.
prove it. Okay. So go ahead. There's some more
And
questions in the chat, if you don't mind.
I wanted to
but-
sort of say also
Okay.
Go ahead,
add to
Lisa.
that. So actually from a different perspective, but and I know Stacy grew up in DR, but growing up as Dominican in New York in the 80s, anytime you said you were Dominican, people would just like look at you and shake your head because all they knew were Washington Heights and drug dealers because that's all you saw on TV, right? So it was, and I had friends that actually would not say they were Dominican just because they didn't want to have to deal with it. Me, like I said, I never cared. So, I mean, I am what I am, and I live with it. But I find sharing stories about family members and their successes starts to, open people's minds. Because unfortunately, the 10% of the Dominicans that come over are the ones that they show on TV that are not doing good, but they don't show the 90%, right? I had my dad and 9 brothers and sisters came here with nothing. You know, brief history, my family were part of the group that fought against Trujillo, the dictator of the Dominican Republic. All my uncles on my grandfather's side, they were all killed because they went to Cuba to train. And when they landed in DR, someone had told them they were coming and they killed all of them. So that side of the family just grew up with women. So actually, they came because they were going to get killed probably if they didn't leave DR. So, but they all came here with nothing. And guess what? One uncle's success story, he had a colmado, a grocery store, bodega. You work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You become part of the community. And you share that experience with people, and people start to come to you. And you may not have the cheapest, the supermarket may be cheaper, but it's that experience of going to the bodega and people feeling the love and the companionship. My uncle, the other uncle is a chiropractor. My dad worked in the surgery room. The rest finished college and went back to DR, and they're all successful businessmen. So just sharing that story, I think, starts to open people's mind and say, oh, you know what? The news is not really what is describing this, Dominicans. So it's just sharing that.
I love it. So each one of you brings something different to the table, a different aspect, a different experience. So based on those experiences, okay, I'm going to go to question number 6 here. How do you believe your Afro-Latino identity has shaped your experiences in education, the workplace, and other areas of life in the United States? Just your experiences based on what you have as an Afro-Latino.
I can say, thankfully, I grew up with a family. I was raised by my grandparents, and they were very pro-Black one, into very pro-education. So that belief of education and pushing myself over and stuff, that has never been a problem. They raised me this way, is embedded in me. Sometimes I want to turn it off. I feel like every time I have a little free time, I'm like, well, let me do a certification, and then I'm like, Stacey, enjoy your time, please, girl, just chill. But besides that, I'll have to say it could be an internal thing that I have, but I feel like we sometimes have to overcompensate, which is similar to the African American experience, right? I because my undergrad was done in the Dominican Republic, it was my perception that some jobs that I had applied didn't look as solid because Universidad Central del Este, they don't know anything about that. So then I went to FIU and got a master's, right? And that completely changed the whole thing. Because I'm education oriented, that wasn't a big problem for me, but I had to do that. If we apply for certain jobs and someone may not have certain certifications, they may still get the job. I need my PMP, I need my Save Agile, right? I need all those different things. And then it's like, I was wired this way. Make sure they cannot deny you, right, this opportunity. Be so prepared they cannot deny you this opportunity. But I may say sometimes it can be tiring because you may see other people where, life is a lot easier for them. Sometimes I have to do the job before I get the job. And some other people just get the job, get trained for several months, take life easy. So I can say it's a different experiences. So I will, shout out to my grandparents for raising me with mentality that doesn't helps me not get stuck in what I don't get, but just focusing on what can you do to ensure you are prepared to get, the things that you want to.
I love that because you're basically saying you share the African American experience in a sense. You have to be extra. You have to have another layer, right? So, and it's not to say that lighter or white don't have to do the same. They do, but they just get afforded sometimes a little bit opportunities.
It's
We have to
understood.
kind of like
It's understood.
right. Yeah, right.
It's just
Right.
This
understood.
is more of
Yeah, it's
Give it
nothing that some people do purposely. I think that's where you're going with that.
right.
Not that
Yeah,
it's just understood. And I think Stacey,
Mhm.
that was just amazing. Like
that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love the way you
Excellent. Yep.
put it. Yeah.
I think it's, when you look at that and just the same way, that's something of our culture too, Latino culture, education. You don't even think about it. You don't. These you have a master's degree, so do I. You don't think about that as something extra. It's just part of what you do. You don't even think ni pensar after high school not to go to college, even if it's a 2-year thing. It's just there, right? But I do want to add, in addition to that experience, the following. When I finished my bachelor's degree, and I know what that is, La Universidad de Puerto Rico. I finished my bachelor's degree in Puerto Rico. And I did my master's there too, my first one. I did it there. When I came to live over to Florida once again, because my higher education was in Spanish for the most part, you have your textbooks and things like that. Remember what I said, at the house we speak English, but the higher education and my vocabulary expansion was in Spanish. When I came as a promotion, and I'll be very honest, people might say, well, maybe they needed a female and maybe they needed someone from the Puerto Rico market. I remember that was brought to me once. Do you think that's why they gave you that promotion? And my response was, a mí no me importa. This is long overdue. And if that's what brought me there, I can do that job. Así que a mí no me importa. I'll be a number for now. I'll be a number. But so when I came over and to Jacksonville, early on, I saw that I had people that reported to me that their vocabulary in English was much more expansive. And just because the way we are, just because the way we're, immediately I started taking courses. Immediately I started reading up. Immediately I started expanding my vocabulary, business vocabulary, conversational vocabulary, but at a higher level. I can speak the language. I always spoke the language, but to that level there, right? So that's something that you have to bring in, right? We're constantly doing that. And I found myself, and I had a really good leader that once said, you know, you use a lot of words. You lose a lot, and very good. You use a lot of words. Just tell me, bullet. And I did. I learned the skill set to do that, and I can do that very well. However, I said, but I'm going to explain something to you, just so you know. One of the reasons that I tend to over explain is because we have to overcompensate. I have to make sure not only that you understand what I'm saying, but that I bring credibility. That's why I bring a lot of history. I bring numbers. I bring facts. I don't bring feelings. Because in this dual, as a woman, as a Latino woman, as a Black woman, I could be misunderstood with just feelings of it. And I want to be very factual, and I want to be able to articulate and bring my narrative with facts to you, right? So, and then just closing it up, Stacey, you said about it, it's something that's instilled, but it's also could be a little bit overbearing for us. It could be, it's our blessing and our curse, because even
Absolutely.
as women, we take on this super Black superwoman syndrome, that we have to be servicing everybody. We have to be top of our game, that we're at the last of the list. We have to constantly be proving. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago for myself that I said, you know what, I'm going to take this cap off, this cape, I'm going to take it off. I'm going to burn it. I'm going to burn it. I'm not only going to take it off, I'm going to burn it. Because that can be very daunting.
Yeah.
But those are the experiences that you bring into this realm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
So we have 10 minutes left here, guys. And basically, I want to open it up to the chat. If anybody wants to go ahead and has any questions or anything that you want to put out there, it's all yours in the chat. In the meanwhile, while you
I have
guys are
one
thinking of
that came
questions.
up. Sorry, Damaris.
Okay, go
One
ahead,
of
go
the
ahead.
questions that came up was kind of when we're looking at, I don't know if it's just like census questions or whenever you're applying for jobs or they're trying to figure out, what employees identify, do we mark other ever, or do we, there's a second set of ethnicity options, non-Hispanic, Hispanic, Black, white, American Indian, Asian. Do you ever choose other or Black and Hispanic if you have the choice of marking more than one?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. I would only mark other if there wasn't Hispanic or Black American, right? But otherwise, no, I'm gonna mark Hispanic. Sometimes even Hispanics not on there, and I have to put I think maybe African American or something like that. I forget sometimes, but yeah, I would only put other if that's the only option. But no, I want to represent exactly who I am. Because again, I feel like I'm an example. And for the most part, I'm an example for my two kids, my children. So I treat my children like that's what I'm giving back to the world. And I talk to them like that, and I want them to be successful, but not only successful, but I also want you to be involved with the community. I didn't have a lot of time because I was doing a lot. I was paying my way through college. I was, always working and studying. So, but you don't have to do that. So you have that extra time. So yes, going to school is great. Yes, playing sports is great, but also get involved with the community and let people know, you're Dominican, and, share your experiences and your family culture and stuff like that.
Anybody else wants to take that?
No, I have the same answer. It depends, like, obviously the early 90s, maybe there wasn't a lot of boxes to check. So I think that's where if ever I always work too, I would choose that. But now there's more options. So, and very, very identifiable. So, I would dare say the last, 20 years, 15 years, I've always selected Black, Hispanic. Sometimes what you don't find is the Hispanic box,
Right.
but you'll always find it Black and white. But maybe early 90s, late 80s, you wouldn't find that. So that's where maybe an other box would have been. And it's just a box. It's just.
And what if there are opportunities out there? Let's say they would give you guys something for free, I don't know, college, something else, some type of education. Would you tell your child not to apply because it says it's for Blacks or it's for Hispanics? Maybe because they don't speak the Spanish language. Is there a level of guilt or something by choosing either one? Or if you know that the program is just for Blacks, will that prevent you from applying? Or is it just for Hispanics? Will it prevent you from applying or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think if we are here, our kids are American. So they are of African descent, and they are Latinos. So if whatever is being offered fits on any of those categories, that means they're qualifying. As long as they do, then they should be applying.
Yeah.
Good. I
Totally.
asked that question because I've been told many a times, no, girl, you're not Black. Don't apply for that. You're not Black. So, it's a real thing. So
It is. It is. But
mhm.
Yeah. For me, because I wasn't born in this country, if they say it's for people that were born in America, Black Americans, then that's clearly not me, because that's an easy distinction for me. I was born in the Dominican Republic. But unless you make a clear distinction, I don't see it. Because here's the thing, I have a small business and I do candles. So sometimes if you're here in Dallas, we have events here at the AT&T Discovery District. And last week or 2 weeks ago, we had like a Black experience, and I was invited, and the person knows I'm Dominican. But it's a dynamic that's hard to navigate between when to put barriers between, what you're entitled to, that the African American should be entitled to also, and what you're not. But everywhere I go, I am Black. I don't get to, some Latinos get to choose, I do not. If a police, as a bad police, which I'm clear, every police is bad, but I'll say that out there, not to be negative, stops me, he could care less if I was born in the Dominican Republic, right? So if he's gonna do his job, he's gonna do his job. But is he gonna be racist? He's gonna be racist against me. So I don't get to choose out there. For some people, when I speak, they immediately know there's an accent. There may be a difference, but I think it's hard to put in a balance, what you do and what you don't. So. Yeah, that's a hard one to navigate. But again, as long as I feel like I fit, I'm applying for anything.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to celebrate every aspect of who we are in our identity, right? So as we navigate through life, we have to find balance, work through our professional struggles or whatever aspirations that we might have. Let's consider each other, right? Let's know that we all are different. We all bring something to the table, yet we can all have these meaningful conversations. We can all share our experiences. And like in the chat, it says, speak to your children about your struggles. Be transparent. Hey, we're here. We're here. We're different. So what? But
Yeah.
we want to make this an awareness and an opportunity for us to all embrace. So actually, we're right almost on time. Anybody has any closing that they would like to share?
I want to say in closing, right? Today we discussed a lot of challenges, the issues of colorism. I want to say, at least in my experience, they're also privileges. Here at AT&T, I've worked with both Latino and Black leadership that see me the same. I can say that I've had Black bosses that have seen me like any other African American and put me in positions of learning and positions of leadership and positions of development, just like they would any of my other peers are African American, and the same within the Latino community, including the white community. So it's not all challenges and negative stuff. I think as long as you're out there pushing, doing your best, preparing yourself, there will always, through history, there has always been allies, right? So there will always be people willing to help you and willing to do the right thing. You may have, you'll find here and there people that don't, but I think at the end, there's more people that are willing to do the right thing. So I know we talked about a lot of challenges, so I wanted to say that.
Yeah, bravo, Stacy. Even this conversation is a conversation of celebration.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been here 20 years and we're blessed to work for a company that understands, a company that demonstrates that it's continuous learning and acceptance. They embrace the changes, the differences, inclusive. You are heard, you are seen, right? And to your point, challenges are something that happens to humanity.
Yeah.
It's a human aspect of it.
Right.
And definitely it's not all rainbows and butterflies, but the world is not like that. But you know, once again, I'm so grateful to work for this company. There's a lot to celebrate. And even this conversation for me is just another act of celebration.
Yep,
Right.
and
And
as to
this-
close, as I tell my daughter now, she's going into the soccer season at Brown, and she just came back from the Dominican Republic, I tell everyone, prepare yourself, work your butt off, and if a wall's in front of you, just break right through it.
Woohoo! On that
Bravo.
note, let's get out of here. Bye, everybody.
Bye, se me cuidan.
Bye.
Adelante.
Enjoy.